Which of these two shooters would you rather get into a gunfight with? One of the most important things we can do as shooters is accurately and reliably track our progress so that we can see how we are or are not improving over time. In this video, we're going to discuss the 3 most prevalent ways that people score their shooting performance, and then we will make a case for what I think is, bar none, the best way to score shooting performance. Let's jump right into it. So the first method of scoring shooting performance is often used by law enforcement and military units, and I don't know of an official name for it, but what it does is it uses points for hits, and then it uses par times instead of tracking the actual time of the performance. So for example, you may have a silhouette target at 25 yards, and there will be scoring zones with different points, and then there will simply be a par time. So you must draw your gun and fire 10 shots in under 10 seconds. And as long as you're under the par time, the time of your performance is not tracked past that, and then they're just going to count how many points you have. Now, the problem with scoring systems like this is that for a competent enough shooter, especially with where a lot of these standards are set, you can get a perfect score very easily. And if you've been shooting for a while, you understand there's no such thing as a perfect shooting performance. Even if I could blink and all of a sudden the bullets appeared exactly where I wanted them to be, I would still probably want to train and find a way to blink faster. So we're always chasing perfection here. And the main problem with the scoring method, again, is that it can kind of get you to think that you're good enough and that you're perfect because you got a perfect score on the qual. That should never be a thing. We're always trying to be better. Now that we have that out of the way, there are 2 primary scoring systems that I want to discuss in this video. They are hit factor and time plus. Now, in the practical shooting sports, hit factor is the scoring system used by sports like IPSC, USPSA, which is the American flavor of IPSC, and also PCSL, the new practical shooting sport on the block. The other system, Time Plus, is primarily used by IDPA, which stands for the International Defense Pistol Association, and then some other sports like 3-gun, but we're going to focus on IDPA for the most part as we discuss Time Plus. Both IDPA and the hit factor sports are going to use a cardboard target similar to this. The zones will be different, but this USPSA target works as an example. And there will be several different zones in the target that are worth different scoring values. Now, the whole point of hit factor, and this is why it's called hit factor, is each of these zones has an arbitrary amount of points assigned to it, okay? And as you shoot a stage, you're going to earn points throughout your performance. Once you are finished shooting, your points are going to be tallied up, and then all of those points will be divided by the time it took you to shoot that course of fire. Time plus is the opposite. With time plus, you have penalties for anything outside the perfect scoring zone. So instead of having points and then dividing by the time, you're going to take the time it took you to shoot the stage, and then after that, for any poor hits outside of the perfect zone, you're going to have arbitrary time penalties added to that performance. In IDPA's case, it's going to be +1 second for any Charlie that is not made up, and a whopping 3 seconds for any Delta that is not made up. If you shoot competitions already, you know this is wild. Now that you hopefully understand how these systems work, I want to start explaining my main problems with Time Plus and why I think hit factor is superior in every way. My first problem is only half serious, but it is interesting. It's a bit of a philosophical problem. With hit factor, again, you are starting at 0, right? And as you start to shoot a stage, you're going to earn points by scoring those hits, and then it's going to be divided by your time. And this will always create a proportional relationship because of the fact that the points are divided by the time. More on that later when we jump into the math. With Time Plus, it is already assumed that you have perfect accuracy, and then anything outside of perfect accuracy is going to be your penalty. And I find that to be backwards the moment I start to rub brain cells together. Past that, we have the deep mathematical problems. Now, I'm gonna be honest, this was meant to be a 3-minute video in totality where I was gonna say, ha ha, hit factor's better. And I wanted to play devil's advocate with myself and try my best to find a scenario where time plus makes more sense, and I simply could not. If we look at the first build drill run that we had in the intro, you can see it was a 3.81 second run with 6 A-zone hits. Now that produced a hit factor of about 7.8, I believe. We'll have the table up here as well. And then the time plus score for that 3.81 second run, since it was a clean run, has no penalties to it. So the score, according to time plus, is simply the time itself, 3.81 seconds. Now, when we compare the clean run to the 1.85 second run that involved 3 C-zone hits, we see a time difference of nearly 100% because 1.85 is nearly half of 3.81. And we see a accuracy difference of about 20% if we're rolling with USPSA's point system. According to hit factor, the 1.85 second run with 3 Charlies is insanely better, with a margin of about 40% if you compare the two performances. But when you look at time plus and what that system prioritizes, the very slow but accurate run wins over the faster and slightly less accurate run by a margin of about 20%. Let me know in the comments which of those two performances you think should be considered the winner. Now, if you were to change the arbitrary time penalties in time plus, you would probably get to a point where that 1.85 run might still win. But we still, with time plus, are going to approach a deeper mathematical problem. And please bear with me, this will be interesting if you get it. The actual problem with time plus is that since you're adding arbitrary penalties to a time rather than creating a multiplicative relationship between the accuracy and the speed, as you increase arbitrarily the time that a course of fire takes, those time penalties for poor hits start to matter less and less. As a perfect example, if you have a 10-second stage that has X amount of targets, it frankly doesn't matter, and you throw 1 Charlie, that 1 Charlie, according to time plus, is going to add a full second to your 10-second run. That's a performance decrease of 10%, right? Let's say the stage involved more running or any other action. There could even be more targets, but you still only threw that 1 C-zone hit. Well, since it's a 20-second stage, that 1 C-zone hit only affects your performance by 5% for that stage. This makes no sense considering the fact that that 1 C-zone hit is still the same mistake as 1 C-zone hit, but just because the length of the performance is different, those mistakes matter less and less. Now, as a final example here, I decided to rip some practice score results from my latest local USPSA match and convert everything to time plus and see if any of the rankings changed at all. The results here might shock you, they might not. So check this out. Now, of course, good shooting is still good shooting, and the difference in the results here clearly demonstrate that. As you can see by this table, I have, with gradient colors, kind of ranked and given a arbitrary ID of 1 through 40 something to all of the shooters in the match. And then you'll see with the time plus column, once we sort by how time plus would have ranked those shooters, those colors start to get shifted, okay? So when you see, the 1 through 44, that's actually an ID I assigned to the shooter so that everyone remains anonymous. I didn't want to dox anyone for this video. And then you can see on the far right column there that placement change is going to be very interesting. So as you can see, the shooter who won the match is still the shooter who won the match. He did a great job. Now, everybody in between that except one person and the 2 people at the bottom of the leaderboard ended up moving places. And if you were to actually dive into the results here like I did, you would find that the shooters who were way more conservative with their accuracy but took more time ended up being placed higher than those who were faster and maintained some sort of practical accuracy. Now, if you know me in real life, you know that I love a healthy debate, so I tried my best to come up with some of the hardest questions to defend time plus and see if there was any case where time plus made sense. So the first one is, well, what about precision and gas gun type matches? And the answer to that is, I frankly don't know. The precision, the PRS, and gas gun match world is not yet my world. Once I get some extra money, I would love to start breaking into precision guns, but I cannot stand here with any authority and say that hit factor would unequivocally be a better system for that. What I can say, however, is that as a thought experiment, I think it would be very interesting to try and assign points to each of the targets in a precision rifle type match and then divide it by the time and see if you would still get consistent or maybe even better results. The second question I have is, well, what if you just change the penalties in Time Plus to half a second for a Charlie and 2 seconds for a Delta? And the answer is, IDPA already did that, and it doesn't matter what you change the penalties to, because at the end of the day, you're still going to run into that deeper mathematical problem where hit factor will always maintain a balance between speed and accuracy because of the division that's happening in the math, whereas the simple addition from the arbitrary Time Plus penalties will cause bad hits to matter less on long stages for no reason. Okay, and the hardest question I could come up with in defense of Time Plus scoring is that IDPA is centered around self-defense and real-life shooting. So with that context in mind, why not reward extreme accuracy at the altar of a little bit of speed? The answer to that question I have is that claiming to reward a good gunfighting performance and actually rewarding what would be a good gunfighting performance are two different things. If you're a follower of John Correa's Active Self-Protection YouTube channel, you can see a clear pattern that nearly everybody who is able to score the first effective hit on someone is going to win a real-life situation. With that in mind, let's revisit a final example here with just one bullet. According to Time Plus scoring, a 1 second draw with a C-zone hit is the exact same performance as a 2 second draw with an A-zone hit, despite a 100% difference in the time it took to get the gun out and fire that first shot. They are scored as the exact same performance on the leaderboard, and I find that to be truly insane. The math and examples here provide a clear case that hit factor is objectively the best way to score practical shooting performance because it maintains that consistent balance between accuracy and speed, while other systems like Time Plus, who add arbitrary penalties, are always going to fall flat on their face at the extremes or as you start to increase or even decrease the time of a course of fire. If you get nothing else from this video, I want you to understand that it's incredibly important that we continue to reassess our training and how we are measuring our performance. Thank you for watching, and I hope this video made you a better marksman.